Have you ever imagined a predator so unstoppable, so perfectly engineered for death, that the world itself bent to its presence? You're not looking at some misunderstood beast. You're looking at a weapon, evolution's magnum opus. The Tyrannosaurus Rex wasn't just a dinosaur. It was Earth's final monster. And it never lost. From the moment it hatched, T-Rex was a blueprint of brutality. Even as a juvenile, it outpaced almost every other predator. But it didn't stop at speed. Nature gave it something terrifying: precision. Those forward-facing eyes weren't for beauty. They locked onto prey with laser focus. Its vision was sharper than that of hawks. It didn't stalk in confusion. It hunted with strategy. And then there were the jaws. This wasn't just a mouth. It was a bone-shattering machine. Over 12,000 pounds of force in one bite. Enough to crush a car like a soda can. Its teeth weren't knives. They were serrated baseball bats coated in bacteria, designed not just to kill, but to rot anything that escaped. T-Rex didn't chase. It didn't flail. It charged with confidence, because it knew it was the last thing you'd ever see. Other dinosaurs needed numbers, speed, trickery. T-Rex needed none of that. It had mass, intelligence, and absolute power. And forget those tiny arms. While you laugh at them, it's already sunk its teeth into your spine. This wasn't nature gone wild. This was nature perfected. No mercy, no weaknesses, no survivors. T-Rex wasn't just born to kill. It was born to conquer. T-Rex didn't just dominate with teeth. It conquered with fear. Long before its shadow darkened the trees, before its scent drifted across the wind, the land knew it was coming. Small creatures froze. Herds changed direction. Entire ecosystems shifted their rhythms just to avoid it. T-Rex didn't hunt. It announced itself. And that was part of its power. Its footsteps weren't just heavy, they were seismic. Each thud sent shockwaves through the soil, a warning sign for anything within miles. Even when unseen, it was felt. The ground trembled. The air thickened. And in that moment, instinct screamed one thing: run. And then came the roar. Not just a growl, not a scream, but something deeper, primal. A vibration that didn't just echo across the forest, but rattled inside bones. Scientists estimate that its roar could reach over 120 decibels, louder than a chainsaw, a thunderclap, maybe even a jet engine at close range. But it wasn't the volume that terrified. It was what the sound meant. It was a death sentence. Even the apexes of other ecosystems, raptors, ceratopsians, and calosaurs, knew the call. And when they heard it, they didn't turn to fight. They ran because T-Rex didn't just kill its prey. It shattered their will to fight before the first drop of blood was spilled. It was a walking panic button, the embodiment of horror. Its presence was psychological warfare, a beast so feared. The forest grew silent in its honor. And that silence, that wasn't peace. That was the last breath before the storm. Its skull wasn't just a head. It was a warhammer, a wrecking ball sculpted by 65 million years of ruthless trial and error. Over 5 feet long, laced with nerves, armored with bone. Every inch of it screamed annihilation. And those teeth, they weren't blades. They weren't meant to slice or pierce like a raptor's. No, they were pillars. Each one the size of a banana, but serrated like a chainsaw. Designed not to cut, but to pulverize. To crack through armor, crush through skulls, obliterate bone as if it were dry leaves. But it wasn't just the teeth. It was the force behind them, over 12,000 pounds of bite force, the strongest ever measured in any land predator. That's enough to burst through a car door, enough to snap a spine in a heartbeat, enough to crush a skull so completely the brain never even knew it died. Other predators bit to bleed, T-Rex bit to erase you from existence. There was no second chance, no limp escape, no heroic struggle, just crack, silence, and in a chilling twist of evolution, its skull wasn't all brawn. It was precision too, packed with sensors that could detect the slightest pressure change. It could feel the vibrations of struggling prey through bone. It didn't just bite with power, it knew exactly where to aim, so when T-Rex clamped its jaws around you, it wasn't just the end of the hunt, it was the end of time. Your world stopped, your story ended, and the forest moved on, quiet, as if it never happened. Because, with T-Rex, there was no struggle, only impact. Death by T-Rex wasn't elegant. It wasn't nature's quiet release. It was chaos, brutal, immediate, and unapologetically messy. This wasn't a predator that tore its meals into neat portions or daintily chewed its food. No, T-Rex devoured life in slabs. When it bit, it ripped through meat, tendon, bone, everything. Then it tilted its massive head back and swallowed whole. Imagine watching a beast the size of a bus inhale a limb like a hot dog. A rib cage disappears between its jaws. A head vanishes with a single, squelching gulp. That's how it fed. Not like a cat, not like a wolf, like a living garbage compactor fueled by blood and fury. Its bite wasn't just strong, it was a system. Its serrated teeth shredded, its bone-crushing power pulverized, and its saliva, lightly acidic, foaming, and fast-acting. Meat didn't linger in its mouth. It dissolved, rotting before it even reached the belly. There was no surgical kill, mercy, no clean ending. Victims weren't delicately finished off. They were erased in violent, wet chunks, and if you were still alive when it bit you, and some were, the horror didn't end with the snap. You might still be conscious as you slid past those teeth, your body twisting in the dark, wet furnace of its throat. Because for T-Rex, digestion started the moment it bit. There was no coming back, no slipping away in the night. Once those jaws clamped down, your fate was sealed. It wasn't just a bite, it was a sentence, brutal, primal, and final. This was the bite of no return, and no creature who felt it ever lived to describe it. Muscle made it terrifying, but it was intelligence that made it unstoppable. Because T-Rex wasn't just a mindless brute rampaging through the Cretaceous. It was a thinker, a watcher, a hunter with patience and precision, not a monster of impulse, but a predator of calculation. Its eyes faced forward, not to admire the horizon, but to measure it. That gave it something rare among reptiles: depth perception. It could judge distance with uncanny accuracy. It could track movement through dense forests, through tall ferns and shadowed clearings. It could see you before you even knew it was there. But eyesight was just the beginning. Inside that thick, armored skull was a brain honed for pursuit. Not massive, but specialized. Regions for scent and sight were highly developed. It knew where to go, when to wait, and when to explode into action. T-Rex could stalk in silence. It could track prey for miles, analyzing patterns, anticipating behavior, like a sniper in the dark, like a ghost that understood time. This wasn't chaos. This wasn't luck. This was strategy. It wasn't running wild through the jungle. It was setting traps, using terrain, timing its ambush, waiting for the moment when fear turned into fatality. You weren't just being hunted, you were being outsmarted. And that's the part most creatures never saw coming. They thought it was just strength they had to outrun. But by the time they realized they were playing chess against a monster, the game was already over in the shadows of the ancient world. The most terrifying killer wasn't the strongest. It was the one that could think, and T-Rex thought in blood. No apex predator today comes close to what T-Rex was. It had no enemies, no equals, no challenger waiting in the wings for millions of years. It was untouchable, nature's final answer to the question of dominance. Even the fiercest creatures gave it a wide berth. Raptors, clever, fast, relentless in packs, wouldn't dare test a T-Rex, because they knew even 10 of them together couldn't match the raw, horrifying physics of its attack. A single swipe from that tail could shatter bones. A single bite could end the pack. There were no territorial battles, no contests for dominance, just one ruler, one executioner, and in that silence, in that complete absence of challenge, T-Rex became something rare in nature. Perfect. It didn't need venom. It didn't need speed. It didn't need armor. Its power was so total that evolution simply stopped trying to one-up it. Nothing needed to change, because nothing could stop it. It was born to rule. Forged in a world where survival was war, and it was the final weapon. You weren't competing with it. You weren't even surviving around it. You were hiding, hoping, praying not to be seen. And if you were, there was no second chance, no dramatic escape, no cinematic comeback. Once T-Rex entered the scene, the story was over. The jungle fell silent. Even the wind held its breath, because this was the predator that broke the game, that stood alone at the top of the food chain. While everything else learned to run, burrow, or disappear, T-Rex didn't conquer its world. It erased everything. That might have tried. You'd think it would take something mightier to end a monster like T-Rex. Another beast, maybe, bigger, smarter, deadlier, something with sharper claws, longer teeth, faster legs, a final challenger to dethrone the king in battle. But no, that's not how the story ends. T-Rex didn't fall to a predator. It fell to the sky, a flash, a roar, and then fire. So much fire, it swallowed countenance. The asteroid didn't beat T-Rex in a fair fight. It didn't win because it was stronger. It just ... cheated. It rewrote the rules, flipped the table, set the entire world on fire, and walked away. One moment, the jungle trembled beneath a thunder lizard's footsteps. The next, silence. Not because something conquered it, but because nothing could have survived. Dust choked the skies. The sun disappeared. Plants died. Then the herbivores. Then the predators. T-Rex didn't go extinct because it got weak. Vanished because its world did. And maybe that's the most terrifying truth of all. Even the perfect apex predator, the one nature could never defeat, was still a passenger on this fragile planet. It wasn't out-hunted. It wasn't outsmarted. It was simply ... outlived. And in that extinction, we glimpse something chilling. Dominance doesn't guarantee survival. Power doesn't protect against chaos. You can be the king of everything and still fall in a single breath to something you never even saw coming. Monsters die to ... not always in battle, not always with glory. Sometimes they just blink out, like legends swallowed by the dark dot. Strange to say it, but maybe we owe our lives to a catastrophe, because if T-Rex had survived, if the sky hadn't fallen, if the fire hadn't come, then the world might still belong to giants, to tooth and claw, to thunder and blood. There would be no cities, no music, no books, no names, no us. Mammals lived in the shadows back then, tiny, trembling, insignificant. We weren't hunters, we weren't builders, we were prey. And as long as the monster walked the earth, we would never rise. But the asteroid changed everything in the vacuum left by extinction. Mammals crept out of the darkness. We began to stretch, to evolve, to learn, to dream, and somewhere down that line came us, you, me. This entire fragile, beautiful thing we call civilization, born from the ashes of an age ruled by titans. It wasn't our strength that won. It wasn't our intelligence. It was timing, luck, a random twist of cosmic fate. We exist because the monster doesn't. So maybe we should be grateful, grateful that the sky fell, grateful that the world turned upside down, grateful that something as unstoppable as T-Rex was stopped, not by battle, not by evolution, but by chance. It's humbling, isn't it? The king of the dinosaurs had 100 million years, and in one flash, gone, and yet here we are, frail, soft, small dot, but alive. So when we look back at the bones of T-Rex, we're not just seeing the past, we're staring at the reason we have a future.